Everybody, welcome to this session, which has to do with youth and how youth and the next generation are really facilitating how we work with new ideations, when we do reboots, and how we now with the announced SDG Ambition, the 10 business benchmark that was announced today by Lise, how do we now go in and really build back better? And the first reboot we are going to speak, and Parham is going to lay this out, is a reboot within the automotive industry. Not just automotive, but the whole, you can call it mobilization, how we mobilize ourselves around. And that, of course, you both need to see in the light of the 10 benchmarks that has been introduced today, but also in the light of COVID, where we all know that we have been challenged a lot on how we come around from being very much into community driving with Ubers, and how do we deal with this situation where we talk about new design principles that need to go in place. So, Pam, if you will lay out a little bit about what we are launching. You're actually launching it here on Friday with a number of academic institutions and also a number of companies. So, over to you, Pam, and speak about this big reboot that you have in front of you for the mobility industry.
Sure. Thanks so much, Anne and Diane, for having me on here. I'm really excited to work with you guys again on the project. And then, by the way, we can now see your slides. So yes, a little bit about myself. Parham Vasili, I'm the business unit director at a company called Aptiv, which is one of the leading tier 1 suppliers, technology companies in the automotive supply and tier 1 space. Really the background for what we want to do, having the ambition for mobility and drive the community forward, is all about addressing the current challenges we're facing in the industry. And when I say mobility, most of the people will think about kind of the ride hailing, the sharing kind of companies, but this is really more than that. And it's also really more than just the automotive sector as such. So this is more than just getting from A to B. So for us, when we talk about mobility, this is about movement. This is about kind of a forward motion of people, goods, and ideas. And if you think about the mobility industry, you will very quickly recognize that this is really just more about the usual automotive companies and brands we know, because it's a whole ecosystem of many, many millions of people globally who are contributing into the value chain to get a product and a service to market, as we're all using it on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, that industry has already gone or is going through a huge transition, going from the traditional ICE and combustion engine through some traditional private ownership of the vehicles and products and services, more towards a world where we have things like connected, autonomous, shared, and electrified. So many challenges were there already. And obviously, through the COVID-19 situation, that whole thing has not fundamentally changed. So the trends we're seeing have not fundamentally changed, but the whole thing got a bit more difficult, right? With production slowdowns, customer consumption slowdowns, and also when you think about some of the operation of the new mobility providers, which had to be suspended. So for us, this was more about taking action, but taking action in a different way. And this is, I think, where Anne and Diane are coming in with their initiative, which Diane will introduce in a second. For me, it was really important that we mobilize the business community, right? Because quite frankly, we have a lot of technology around us. We have a lot of great solutions around us, but bringing these technologies to market, making them sustainable, making them to work for society and the businesses which want to operate, make a profit, make a living out of this, this is really what was kind of critical for me. So before I kind of go a little bit more into detail about the hackathon, maybe Diane, since your slides are up and running, I hand over to yourself.
Thank you, Parham. And indeed, part of what we want to do is to activate youth, but actually partner them with real solutions and real mentors that can actually build out our solutions. So the youth have a lot of energy and they have a lot of ideas. And this is what the UN is focused on right now, is trying to engage
Diane.
them, listening to them, and resources to make their. Yes?
So, Diane, can you hear us? I think we lost Diane. So, yes, yeah. Yeah.
Did you lose?
Yes.
I'm here. Can you hear me now? Can you see the slides? Okay, good. So it all began with Reboot the Earth. It was a UN challenge with the Youth Envoy's Office. It was aimed to mobilize socially conscious young people to develop inspiring solutions that reimagine how the latest digital technologies can address the challenges of the UN global goals. And we all recognize how important that is. And this competition was incredibly successful. How did it work? The platform is designed to engage global citizens and youth to contribute to solving global challenges through crowdsourced solutions together with young innovators. So it's a multi-stakeholder collaboration, and it's an opportunity for multiple stakeholders from the UN, academia, and the private and public sector to collaborate on solutions. There's knowledge sharing that goes on between intergenerational. And so it's a space to share feedback and ideas that leads to knowledge sharing, which will foster innovative solutions. And that's very much what we found. How it works, we identify a topic, we identify a challenge topic, working with UN entities. We identify one of the UN goals that needs to be worked on, which they all do. We're desperately behind. And we launched an open call for entries to the Reboot Accelerator. And then we develop partnerships. We seek engagement across the relevant wider UN entity network, as well as external partnerships to strengthen the expertise and the reach. And then we create change. We mobilize networks of educational institutions, partners, and in particular, young people through the UN Reboot Accelerator process. So the actual process itself, the first step is we ideate, and young people around the world submit fresh ideas using emerging technologies in response to this open call. We use an open source platform for that, a crowdsourcing platform. And then they collaborate. We crowdsource the ideas, they're pooled, they're validated, and winning entries are passed up to the next round. And then we prototype, we go through a prototyping process where winning ideas are invited to prototype sessions through hackathons in physical locations or now in the virtual space. And then scale. We at the UN are looking for technologies that will be open source and that will scale. And so the UN Reboot Accelerator and partners help team up to refine solutions and find relevant partners to continue developing those solutions. So what does that look like in
share the slides again?
On this slide, you'll see the Climate Action Summit that the Secretary General they disappeared. Okay. Let me see what happened here. Okay. Technology.
Not yet. It's coming.
Can you see them now? Yep. Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Yep.
Can you see them now? Okay. Thank you for letting me know. So in practice, you see that Greta was on the stage and along with a couple of other youth and our winners from the competition, our recent competition. Reboot the Earth was developed in partnership with the Youth Envoy's Office in 2019. And this youth hackathon that mobilized more than 1,000 young people from all around the world. And they worked with the UN Technology Innovation Labs to develop innovative solutions that address the UN Global Goal number 13, which is climate change. The results, as you can see, are that we brought the winners to the UNGA, to the Climate Action Summit, and they were able to discuss their solutions, sometimes on the stage, in this case with the Secretary General and Greta, and also at the Global Compact at the lunch with business leaders. And it was a great opportunity for them. And then they went back and are developing the actual solutions into prototypes. And we're very proud of the progress that they've made in India, in Egypt, in Malaysia, in Finland, in the US. A recent challenge that we launched in March 2020 is Reboot Health and Wellbeing with WHO, UNAIDS, as well as innovation teams at UNICEF and World Food Program. This challenge was special because it's designed to address youth's challenges with keeping them safe and keeping them well. And this was launched in an effort to reach young people who are challenged in the lowest financial sectors and lowest, most challenged areas. So we're looking for solutions. Up to 1 million adolescent deaths occur each year, largely due to preventable causes. In practice, this is how it works. We received over 140 ideas and across a range of possible health innovation solutions, which included app and games, wearing digital technologies and tools, wearables, the creation of improvement of product and service processes. Some of the ideas were new approaches to collaboration or communication, and new ways of engaging young people and other stakeholders, and also policy reform proposals. And the winning solutions will be announced this month. It's very exciting. We have 3 winners, and it's just around the corner. So within a couple weeks, we'll be having a big celebration with the World Health Organization for these winners. We had Reboot the Ocean, which was also launched in early, it was actually launched at Davos in January. And the winning solutions were presented in May 2020 to tackle the 5 critical challenges identified by the UN to help improve the health of the global ocean. So ending waste entering the ocean, ocean energy, mapping the ocean, setting sail for zero, and fully traceable seafood. And this was developed in partnership with the UN Global Compact and the Oceans Conference at the UN.
The world is hitting pause in a way it never has before. How can this time be used to reboot the ocean? Reboot the Ocean is a call for innovative solutions initiated by the UN Reboot Accelerator, an opportunity to work collectively, think out of the box, and mobilize our energies to deliver on the SDGs. The UN Reboot Accelerator is calling on young innovators to come together and think up ideas that can help tackle the global climate crisis and keep the oceans clean. The oceans are vital in helping us meet the SDGs, but innovative solutions are needed to meet the 5 tipping points for healthy oceans by 2030. How can we make sure our seafood is sustainably caught or harvested? Can ocean electricity production provide affordable and reliable energy for all? How can we pool our knowledge to better know the ocean? How can we achieve zero-emission shipping? And can we find solutions to end waste entering the ocean? Winning solutions from around the world will have the opportunity to take part in the Ocean Conference 2021. This is a wake-up call. If we can come together in solidarity to turn the tide on this pandemic, surely we also have what it takes to create the world we want.
And what was the result of that challenge? So here's a couple of examples of the winning solutions and technologies, which were won for each one of the tipping points. The first one is Sank S, which is it's actually a noise canceling, because I guess noise pollution for the shipping industry is really overwhelming the seas right now and the tracking processes of the seafood. And so this was using machine learning and stream processing, and it was actually one of the winning solutions that will be partnered with an ocean business. This is one from the winning solution from Reboot the Earth. It was Signs of Life. It used augmented reality based application and encouraged users to collect climate relevant data in the real world. And it contributed to ending the plastic waste and identifying and tracking an ecosystem's health. Some of the learnings that we have learned from this past year of running these Reboot accelerators has been that we've been able to achieve and develop really wonderful partnerships within the UN, as well as the agency's funds and programs. And we've developed a very robust platform to host and manage these processes, and a diverse team with the ability to engage on technology and data issues. These are some of our partners from within the UN and the agencies and funds and programs that we have worked with. We're currently working on one with ILO, so it will have to do with the future of work, and it's very exciting, in the future of education. And the crowdsourcing platform that underpins this, that we have over 20,000 innovators on, is called Unite Ideas, and it is open to any UN agency to come and partner with us to try and crowdsource some solutions. Unite Ideas, it's run through our office, and the UN Reboot Accelerator system draws upon the skills and creativity of 19,000, now it's almost over 20,000 engaged global citizens and organizations to solve the world's most pressing problems. It was adopted by the UN High-Level Committee on Management as a standard crowdsourcing platform, and it's available to all UN agencies, funds, and programs. And it can be used for an online call for innovations, competitions, virtual hackathons, and crowdsourcing within the general public. And the results you can see, we have 250,000 site visits, 600 ideas developed, 125 open source solutions have been received, 25 innovation challenges have been launched, 19,000 registered users. Over 40 entities have used it, and we have thousands and thousands of votes from the public in 170 countries. So it's a very exciting and now vibrant community of innovators and entrepreneurs who very much care about the Sustainable Development Goals and very much want to be a part of the solution as youth. And Parham,
Sure,
I'm going to hand it over to you for the very last slide to announce
I
your
gave a bit of an introduction at the beginning
for
where I
your
tried to
Reboot
elaborate
Mobility Challenge.
We are really at a time where we have to accelerate the transition of a lot of industries, and we have to therefore make sure that the transition happens by a strong commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals. And what we're doing here is we are going on a journey to reboot mobility. And as I said, mobility is not only the mobility as you know it. It's going to be much more than that. It's going to be about movement. It's going to be about forward motion into the future. We're going to start with a hackathon. Now, the special thing about this hackathon is it's a business-focused hackathon, where the challenge will be to come up with an idea which makes sense from a business point of view. It can result in some business improvements or even result in its own business venture. It's supported by a very large group of organizations, but we have 4 key academic partners which are kindly providing us their intake and students of MBA and executive MBA participants for this hackathon, and they're kind of mentored by industry experts. And this is really exciting because here we have the top universities joining us, which is Oxford University, Side Business School, the London Business School, Cambridge Judge, as well as the Warwick Business School. So really one of the leading business schools globally. We're focusing on generating some exciting ideas to transition or help the automotive industry to transition, and also help all the various stakeholders within the mobility space to go on their journey with us. As we speak, the students and the mentors has already started to engage into this virtual platform. And on the 19th of June, we will have our official launch. We will share some links here as well for all of you to join that launch and that keynote speaks. We're having from some exciting speakers. And this is really the starting point of a community of what Anne and Diane was announcing to be the ambition for mobility. So here we want to bring thought-leading experts together, industry leaders together, and we jointly want to help the industry to go on this journey and transition and reboot mobility in this space. So really excited about this. Anne and Diane, thank you so much for the opportunity also to engage with you on this and be part of this big movement. And as we see, there are lots of challenges around us. Digitalization is one of them, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, Parham, can I ask you one question? When you say mobility beyond automotive industry,
so really
what are you looking for in this challenge?
Because,
is it beyond the automotive, or is it just the automotive industry?
Let's get from A to B, and here we have our kind of usual suspects of the mobility service provider, the ride-hailing, the shared mobility providers. But mobility is much more than that. It goes beyond just the pure automotive industry. It goes towards, of course, the air mobility as well. It goes towards anything which is about the movement of people, goods, and really ideas around the globe. And we are all faced with this challenge of how do I support, how do I engage in a more sustainable way? And we as providers and as technology providers, we want to provide these solutions out there. But at the same time, we have to engage many stakeholders in the conversation to achieve that. I mean, it's not just, for example, the traditional automotive OEM either, because if you think about 13.8 million jobs just in Europe, directly or indirectly engaged in mobility, right, in automotive mobility. So this goes beyond the manufacturers and production. This goes to insurances, finance industry, sales and services. Right. I mean, it's a huge value chain engaged in providing that customer experience to the end consumer. And that's really what we have to take into account. So many millions of jobs affected by this. And as we know at the moment, the whole industry is under huge amount of pressure. But making that transition can't happen just by, one organization and one leader alone. We have to bring everybody together and make sure we deliver jointly against the commitments of the Sustainable Development Goals.
That's great. So it's designed to help us build back better communities within the mobility sector. And youth are very much a part of that. And I know you both were involved in a lot of our youth competitions as judges, and you've watched the whole process. So what is the best outcome and the best way to engage youth in building back better? Maybe I could turn to Anne, and then
we are in different stages,
talk a little bit about
depending on where we are in the world around COVID. Either we're in the middle of it or we are in a place where the world is reopening, is that we were not prepared for this at all. And we all learned this in the really hard way. And the youth is really the next generation. And what has been interesting was that what was mobility before COVID, where we kind of thought that we knew, at least we had a lot of good ideas what to do. We kind of realized during COVID there's some whole new design principles that need to be brought into consideration. Distance, for example, or how do we make sure that we are safe when we go from A to B, and what does mobility actually means? And there are so many new perspectives that we didn't really think about before COVID that needs to be brought into the design principles. And this is where youth, what I learned being part of Reboot the Earth or Reboot the Ocean, is that youth mindsets, we need that, of course, together with the professional, you can call it people who are in jobs mindset or all people's mindset, but the youth mindset is super important when we generate new ideas, because they are the next generation going into corporations around the world. So we need youth and their mindset to come up with great news ideas. And there's a little bit of science fiction in it, you can say. And we're seeing that during COVID, that and that's why the SDG Ambition and the Ambition business benchmark that has been launched today is super important, because it's not a linear ideation that needs to come up here. We really need to come up with some whole new ideas and perspective and design principles. And this is what a reboot can give you, to Pam, what he talked about, when you put together with academia, together with the private sector, together with the mind of youth, when that come together, and that's what we look forward to see now, where we're going to see the reboot of mobility. So Pam, what are you saying to your experience, or what you expect going forward with this big reboots that you're launching?
Yeah, I mean, I like to address it maybe twofold. One is looking at the product, and obviously that's, you know, that's what in the end gets to the market, the product and the service. But on the other side, how we actually get there. So from a product point of view, in the mobility and automotive sector, we are talking about the mega trends. So there are hard mega trends, things like automation, connectivity, electrification. So these are things which are highly connected to technology, which you have to develop, you have to launch, you have to make sure, you know, you meet the regulations and so on and so on. These are things you kind of can manage on your roadmap, on your strategy. But then there are so-called softer trends. These are still mega trends. Things like urbanization, that we know by, you know, 2030, 60% of the population is going to live in an urban environment. One of these mega trends is Generation Y. And Generation Y is a challenge for the current industry, because the expectations, the requirements of Gen Y as a consumer base is fundamentally different to what, compared to the consumer base we had previously, right? So the way they engage in products and services, the way they want to perceive organizations they're engaging with is fundamentally different. So that is one of the fundamental reasons why it is super important to not only talk with the youth, but also really engage them into the design process of the products and services. On the other side, you look at some of the organizations who try to do some transformation projects. You hire a bunch of students, you put them in a room, they come up with some cool ideas, and then you hope somehow, they've been launched in the organization, and most of them fail. Because the people who really hold the knowledge of the processes, about the value chain, about how things get done in the end of the day, are of course what Anne was referring to as the more experienced professionals in the workspace. So by bringing these two generations together, making sure they engage and work together, and also listen to each other, of course, right? Not falling back into the old habits, at the same time not trying to, do everything quick and cut corners. This is the unique opportunity we're having. And from my experience, I mean, you guys remember when we were in New York for the final hackathon of the Reboot the Earth, I was amazed how quickly the young people came up with some apps, and they were using machine learning algorithms like on the fly. In 15 minutes, the first team called me and says, hey, can you have a quick look at this? And I was amazed how quickly they did it, right? So I think there is a unique opportunity to engage all generations together to deliver products which are going to meet and serve the Sustainable Development Goals. Yeah. And this is what I'm most excited about. This is, we have enough things out there, enough tech out there. We just need to bring it together and add some value. And I really also have to say that the young people are getting much more early into the being entrepreneurs, into the business space. I mean, with the MBAs, we already see that there are some super bright people in the cohorts. We are seeing from these 4 universities, for example, which are engaged with us in the hackathon. And that really makes it exciting. It's a different level of conversations, discussions, and engagement. And that's really what I'm excited about.
That's great. And they're also really passionate about equality, as we can see. I mean, as we know, they're passionate about the SDGs, they're passionate about human rights. And even one of the questions, I've been reading the questions that we're getting during this session, and actually one of them is, are you going to be addressing disability and mobility for disabled in your challenge by any chance? Does that happen to be one of your challenge focuses for this mobility hackathon, or do you have certain specific
things we want to address?
Challenge
so we have kind of divided it in a way
that you're handling?
There are certain change areas. It's sustainability, it's digitalization, it's new mobility. But then you have some kind of verticals, which are the focus areas, such as the operation of a business, because we have to work on the operation, make it sustainable, make it more lean, get rid of waste, make it more agile. We have to work on the products and services, and then we have to also look at the customers. And you're absolutely right. You know, one of the big commitments and promises of, you know, mobility is the ability to make it accessible for younger people, make it accessible for older people, make it accessible for disabled people. So I will certainly push this into the challenges space, and I'm looking forward for one of the team addressing it and providing some innovative ideas for that.
That's great. And another question that came up was about the health pandemic. You know, I mean, I don't know, in New York City, when you get into an Uber, you know, mobility has changed for cities now. There's a barrier in between. There are even plastic barriers. So, you know, we have a lot of new challenges because of this health pandemic. And perhaps your challenge
and I think it's a very good
encompass
point.
some
I
of
think
those
we
as
have
well.
seen that a
Or
lot
do you
of
have any
the
thoughts
service
as we build
providers
back
in the mobility
into these
space had to
areas?
suspend their services, right? Or had to fundamentally kind of lower their offering into the market because of that challenge, because we haven't thought about that. So I think we just have to look at it also maybe from a design principle point of view, and touched on that. We have to think about maybe designing surfaces differently. We have to think about, you know, kind of the user experience from the moment when you engage in such a service, you book such a service, to the way, you know, you then actually being transported in the service. But it goes really two ways, because we also have to make sure, of course, that the people who are operating these services are safe and healthy. So all in all, this is exactly where it's such an interesting and exciting space, because there is not just, you know, the one-shot solution which you can go for everything and everybody. We have to just look at it in a very broad way, because in the end of the day, it's also about the excitement of mobility, the excitement of movement, right? We don't want to just have everybody go into one single universal product. We want that diversity also, because quite frankly, each and every city, each and every environment will need different solutions to be provided to them.
Yeah, absolutely. We're getting a lot of comments on the session about they'd like to be mentors. So if you're looking for mentors, can you put we'll put something in the chat so you can find.
I would like to add one thing that I think we all have learned here, being in this COVID situation. It's not like hackathon is a new thing. That has been going on for a while. It's not a new thing that you work with the mind of youth, and that you do ideation and you do design. But I think what we probably all have seen during COVID is that from ideation to implementation has been super fast. And the public-private partnership between youth, academia, government, private sector has been super, super fast and super integrated, and not just inside a city or inside a country, but across cities and countries around the world. And I think what we probably all kind of like waked up to when this COVID hit the world was that we did not only look at new design because it was possible, because technology made it possible, but we were forced to do new design because of some outside situation. So for example, like Diane talked about, because of technology, we have this amazing mobility about Lyft and Uber around the world and how we do community driving. But then because of COVID, suddenly there was people was hesitant to go in and sit in an Uber, and then there's come a whole new design aspect into it. So I think what the 17 global goals show us, and what the 10 new business benchmarks show us, is that we do need to take into consideration when we do design that there are some, maybe not nice to think about, that it can be like what we saw with COVID, but there are some design principles that we do need to take into consideration when we design solution. I don't think anybody thought about, because then we would probably have been better prepared. But if people have been thinking about a COVID situation, a lot of things will have been designed differently. And now we decided super quickly doing COVID. But there are many other things. If you think about power outbreak, or and what Pam and Diane and I spoke a lot about is that it's really interesting when you go to a time like COVID, is that you go into the fundamental of being a human being. You go into Maslow's pyramid and you look at safety, neighborhoods. You become, I mean, you know, all the fundamental thing about being a human being become the primer for you. And then a lot of that stuff have got totally new design now because of COVID. So it is an interesting thing, and that's what we're including into those reboots, and that we don't just design because it's possible to do with a certain type of technology. We design to make sure we can go through situations like we're going through right now, like COVID. Yeah.
That's right. And we design for sustainability and scale. So we've got big problems. I think the pandemic actually made us all on the same page and realize that what affects one affects us all. And the solutions really need to come from all different sides and all different locations. And so that's one of the benefits of being able to reach out all over the world and collect solutions. And I've worked with youth for over 20 years. And I think one of the keys is that we don't really listen to them. We give them lip service and we just kind of listen to them, but we don't really provide them with tools. And I want in the future us to actually be able to, and much of my work has been designed around actually challenging them, giving them funding, giving them the tools that they need to actually build out their ideas and get engaged with their communities. And so moving forward, how can we take them? You both come from the corporate sector. How can we take ideas that maybe aren't fully hatched, but that might be really good ideas, and motivate them to take it to the next level? Maybe seed funding, or maybe there's small grants, or maybe there's other options in the corporate sector that you're aware of that I'm not, because I come from the NGO
to be honest
space.
with you, I like to start
so maybe
from
you
the
could
point
kind of
where I
enlighten
say
us about
we have
that
to
a little
start
bit.
listening to each other
Parham, I'll
more,
bounce
right?
to you
So
first.
we have the fundamental problem at the moment that all channels are really, really busy, you know, towards the people who are trying to deliver technologies, who try to, you know, do the work on the shop floor, get products out of the production sites and so on, all the way up to the executives and seniors who are there to give the money and the funding and the sponsorship. And then we have the youth somehow in the middle, cramped in, you know, where we say, hey guys, you're the cool people, give us some ideas, be innovative. That's what you're here for. So I think we all as a society, especially in the workplace, we have to move towards a space where we actually are more present and we are more able to listen to each other's viewpoints, right? That is really difficult to do. And as you know, Diane, I'm engaging in this mindfulness for many, many years now. And in the beginning, people were asking, you know, you do this autonomous cars and automated driving stuff. How can you, you know, why are you interested so much in this mindfulness? And I've really been saying, look, if we do not give people the right mental and cognitive capabilities, right, to cope in the current situation of information overload, a lot of, you know, time pressure to go to market and so on, then we will, you know, we are setting people up to fail. So first and foremost, I would really say that we all have to get to a mindset where we can more engage with each other in an open, collaborative mindset, listen to each other. Now, having done that, then of course we come to a point where a lot of ideas are flooding in, a lot of, you know, cool things are on the horizon to work on, a lot of interesting things to work on. Then we as a business community and also as senior leaders, we have to start to setting the agenda, setting the right focus, right? For our organizations to start with, but also for society as a whole. Bringing these two things together, I'm pretty sure there are enough, you know, exciting people out there, young and old, right, all ages, from all genders, to work together on solutions. That's, I think, currently the two missing ingredients I'm seeing in the workplace, which we have to kind of gap.
That's interesting. Yeah, it is how we met. We met on a panel at Oxford for technology and entrepreneurs, and it was about mindfulness, which I found fascinating. So Parham was actually the UK business representative for mindfulness in the business world. And it's really been fascinating to me how critical he's woven that into everything that he does in terms of how we develop technology. And we live in a world of technology now, and yet we're inundated with the noise. And unless we have the mindfulness aspect of it, it's absolutely critical to our future moving forward. And going back to the youth question and the corporate, how can we give them more tools? How can we give them more resources moving forward to build back better? This great reset that we're going through. How do we take them a little more seriously and incorporate more youth into our
we
ideas?
have seen, for example, many early startups have been generating ideas that were super fast implemented. Many youth ideas from academic institutions or from the Reboot have come up with ideas that very quickly got implemented. So I think that the fact that COVID was a united issue for every single person around the world, we were all coming together equally. Nobody had more to say than others. We all had equal voice, and we all were looking for solutions to help. And I think that actually accelerated what it was a little bit before, that youth came up with great ideas, but they were not always implemented. This is what we have seen a huge shift in. I mean, now we just need to make sure now where the world is opening, and I know there's still no solution yet, but the world are recovering in part of the world, that we need to make sure now that going forward, when we now are working on all the other issues and opportunities around the 17 global goals, that we have youth equally to come in with solutions and ideas. And this is why the reboot that UN are doing is so important. And for me also, because I've been part of a lot of reboots and hackathons around the world, and I think there's a lot to learn from what UN is doing, what you're driving, Diane, that you do the reboot, and then you have an accelerator, and then you bring solutions going forward. And also the collaboration that you have with the other UN entities, and also the private sector and academia.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, I'm thinking about some of the winners, and I just wanted to talk for a second about a couple of our winners, and give you an example if there's any youth or companies listening to us. One of my favorite solutions came out of India, and it focused on women and women farmers who are not traditionally trained in crop rotation. They're not traditionally trained in sustainable farming, because men traditionally do the farming. And so this young man invented a tool that incorporated microfinance and small women's groups and artificial intelligence to predict the weather and the crops that were going to be sustainable in the coming climate change. And I will send a link and put a link in the chat to his name and his work, but it's absolutely amazing. And then he went back to our India lab for UN Technology Innovation Labs, and is actually being supported by them and building out this in several villages right now in India. And he's having quite a bit of success, and it's really fun to see youth, because they can do so much with very small amounts of funding and support. In terms of what we would consider big amounts. I mean, to them, they can make so much out of smaller amounts. I also have a foundation that we believe very much in youth and in seed funding these creative, great ideas. Another idea that was actually one of the winners at one of the UN competitions was Grow Your Own Cloud. So a lot of our data storage is creating incredible pollution for the world. And data can actually be stored in the DNA of plants, which is probably not anything that I had certainly ever heard of, but they're working on actually encompassing solutions that will build data storage into your plants, which is amazing. So ideas like that, we need to think creatively, and sometimes youth having the more fresher minds and eyes and mindset,
I think that
it's really exciting to partner with them and help them visualize their dream.
The solution you just mentioned, the synthetic DNA solution, this was not developed by people who are, deep scientific experts. This has been developed by product designers, right? People who understand the user experience, the customer experience, look at the problem differently, and then engage the right experts to get a solution out there. And I think this is the unique opportunity which we have and use at the moment, is they are really good with technology. They can access, all the computing power of the world on their fingertips, right? They have access to all of this technology. At the same time, what they have now at their fingertips, they have a large network, and this is, the work you two are doing is so fundamental, that you're offering the youth and the people this network, is that they can tap into the network and talk with the right experts, talk with the right people, bounce ideas around, and then go to market, hopefully win big, but then fail, start something new. I think this mindset, we just have to nurture this so much, and I think that is the fundamental difference compared, to the past. So everybody has really equal opportunities to access, but you just have to get on with it. And this is what you guys are doing so fundamental. That what I have so much respect for the work you two are doing, is that giving youth this opportunity, giving people the platform, is really a good starting point. So nobody can say, well, I didn't know where to start, because that's really what you guys are doing through your platform. So
thank you. And thank you, Parham. And I think you really touched on something there when you said fail. We're too afraid to fail, but that's a part of the process. Youth need to be taught that it's okay to fail. And that is part of how we learn, and that's part of I think sometimes we've gotten so focused on success and high grades and high marks and all this, that we forget that, failure is a big part of life, and we learn our greatest lessons. So I think that's part of also the mentoring with the intergenerational. With the right mentor, you can sustain and become more resilient and develop a more resilient mindset. So I think that's super interesting what you're touching on.
I think that
anything else to add?
And I see that very active in the chat, and thankful for that. I think if you are in academia, you are in the private sector, you are youth, or you are a person just who wants to be ambitious and go in and really, challenge status quo, get involved into the UN Reboot Accelerator. And now we have here Parham working with the whole thing about mobility, but it could also be other things that you should go in and look at, which should be rebooted. When we came together, Diane and I, about rebooting the Earth, that was definitely with the General Assembly last year is still a big issue, and was a big issue. But since that, we are seeing Reboot Ocean, Reboot about health, and in the end, we definitely need to reboot every single thing now. That is what we have learned us. So I think get involved, and that would be my last thing I want to add to this session. Really get involved, either as a mentor or a person, coming in with your academic institution. You heard there's a lot of universities involved with what Parham is driving. But maybe, Parham, you can say a little bit about, I don't know if people still can get involved. It's already starting here in a couple of days.
Yeah, certainly register yourself. I sent the link out if you have any experience in kind of the mobility, automotive. So far, the hackathon is going to be focused on that. But if you're willing to engage in the wider community, as I said, mobility is not just get from A to B. It will be much more than that. We will, talk about the user experience. Some great ideas already came in through the messages. We will try to address all of them. So a lot of time for this hackathon, next hackathons, to get involved. And like Anne said, academic partner, as a participant, as a technology provider. I had a lot of people sending me LinkedIn messages saying, hey, you know, we have this tool, we have this platform, we would be happy to offer that for the students and participants to kind of utilize. So I think it's also a great opportunity to engage with other stakeholders and really understand what is the challenging issues of the industry. We also have a large base of, you know, one of the best consulting companies globally engage with us. So a lot of opportunities also to find, you know, new people to bounce ideas around for your future engagements. So yes, please get engaged.
Thank you so much. So Diane, do we have you back? Thank you. Maybe Pam, you can say a little bit about it. Starts on Friday and it runs the whole weekend, and the winners will be announced.
Yes, so what we will do, we will start it on the June 19th, the Friday, in the evening European time. We will have a keynote. I will send some links and ideas, links out for everybody to look into this. It will run through the weekend. I mean, in the nature of a hackathon, it will kind of intensive 48 hours for people to go through. All participants then create their pitch deck of their idea. That's going to be presented to executive leadership judging panel from Aptiv. We have a very exciting judge there. One of our VPs, we have somebody from the UN, we will have somebody from a venture capital company, and from Roland Berger, one of the leading consulting companies in the automotive mobility space. And then afterwards, the winners will have lots of opportunities to present their team, their solution at various events we have kind of lined up for them, all the way up to a very special event then beginning of next year, which we keep secret for now to have the surprise for everybody. So yes, lots of activities which will be happening in that space.
Thank you so much, Paham. And I think we lost Diana Dane here in the end. But on behalf of Diane, I want to say thank you so much, Paham, for coming up with this great reboot. There's been many reboots, as Diane spoke about earlier, many more to come. But again, to all the people listening in, a number of links has been put into the chat. And very welcome to reach out to the three of us if you want to get involved. And oh, there we have her, Diane. Will you do the closing note?
Diane just rebooted, right?
Yeah. I just rebooted.
I'm back. I thank you so much. I know you guys were handling it so well, but we'll definitely get in touch. Thank you so much, Parham, for being our guest, and Anne for joining us on this session. And Parham, good luck on the reboot of mobility. We're excited to see where that takes us. And we'll put information in the chat on how you can reach all of us. So thank you again.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.